Hello, my ELA class. This is Mr. Jeter. Today we're going to go into an exciting new unit, poetry. Now, there's a couple of definitions for poetry. Poetry, simply put, is simply the writer having fun with his words, expressing their thoughts and opinions in an imaginative way. Now, a better definition could be poetry is expressed by the use of distinctive style and rhythm through the imaginative use of lines and stanzas. Now, in poetry, we use what's called lines and stanzas. They're similar to, sentences. Stanzas are similar to paragraphs. Now, a two-line stanza or a two-line poem is called a couplet. While a four-line stanza or four-line poem is called a quatrain. A six-line stanza would be called a sestet, and so forth. The three R's of poetry are rhyme, repetition, and rhythm. Rhyme, repetition, and rhythm. Now rhyme is a repetitive ending sounds in words. Now poetry does not have to end in a rhyme to be called poetry. Okay. Repetition is simply put repeating important lines or words at the end of sentences to create a mood for a certain poem. Rhythm is the beat created by the sound of the different words.
Rhyme scheme in a poem refers to the repetition of rhyming sounds at the end of a poem's lines. When you're talking about rhyme scheme, it helps to start by reading the poem aloud, which I'll do now. The line-storm clouds fly tattered and swift, the road is forlorn all day, where a myriad snowy quartz stones lift and the hoof-prints vanish away. The roadside flowers, too wet for the bee, expend their bloom in vain. Come over the hills and far with me, and be my love in the rain. To find the rhyme scheme, we simply look at the last word of every line and say whether or not it rhymes with the previous line. The first rhyme is always A, the second rhyme is B, and so on until you get to the end of the poem. So in this case, swift is rhyme A, day is rhyme B, lift is another rhyme A, away is another rhyme B. The word be, though, is the first rhyme C, since B does not rhyme with swift or day, and vain is the first rhyme D, since it doesn't rhyme with B, swift, or day. Here's what the full stanza looks like in rhyme scheme notation. For the sake of time, I'm going to notate the second stanza, continuing the rhyme scheme above. Remember that rhyme scheme carries on for the entire length of the poem. You don't start over with each new stanza. So in the second stanza, themselves doesn't rhyme with any of our previous rhyme words, so it becomes rhyme E. Here's rhyme in the previous stanzas. All the way back in the first stanza, in fact. At that time, we called that rhyme D, and so now we have two more rhyme Ds to add, which looks like this. Notice how in this poem Frost uses the rhyme from the first stanza again in the last stanza as a way of wrapping the poem up. This is a pretty common tactic in poetry, and poets know that if they do this, the poem has the effect of coming full circle. Now that we've done all four stanzas, we can look at the rhyme scheme for the entire poem. Notice that in the rhyme scheme notation, stanzas are grouped together like they are in the poem, with a space between each one to mark where a stanza ends and a new stanza begins. So there are plenty of examples of poems that don't rhyme. Sometimes this is called blank verse, when a poem doesn't rhyme but is written in a certain meter, usually iambic pentameter. In modern poetry, though, free verse, meaning verse that is not metered or rhyming, is very popular. So don't fret if your poem doesn't rhyme, it just means that you don't have to go through all this to figure out the rhyme scheme.
Now there are different types of poems. Okay, quite a lot. Okay, I'm going to show you a list in just a few moments, but we're going to be concentrating on like 7 of them when we do our project. Figurative language, we've talked about it already, consists of similes, metaphors, personification, hyperbole, and idioms. Okay, we're going to touch base on the definitions of those again, just to bring them back to your remembrance, and see how they go into poem structure.
Now, the first term in figurative language I'll be talking about is similes. And a simile is a comparison of two unlike things using the words like or as. So remember, a simile is comparing one noun to another, and it has to use the word like or as. So in our first example, she ran like a cheetah is comparing the pronoun she to the noun cheetah, and it has the word like. Next, I'll be talking about metaphors. And a metaphor is a comparison of two unlike things without using the words like or as. So just like a simile is comparing one noun to another, however, in this case, you are not using the word like or as. So in our example, it says, she is a cheetah. It's comparing the pronoun she to the noun cheetah, and again, not using the word like or as. And the next term I'll be talking about is personification, and it's applying human characteristics to non-human objects. And what we mean by human characteristics are things that typically only humans can do. Things such here, our example is, the sun smiled at me. We know that the sun doesn't have a face or a mouth to be able to smile, but it makes it interesting more writing and kind of creates a better image in our head of the sun, of a brighter sunny day. The next thing I'll be talking about is hyperbole. And a hyperbole is an intentionally exaggerated figure of speech that goes beyond what is true or normal. Basically, first example, I have a ton of homework tonight. If you had an actual ton of homework, that would be 2,000 pounds of homework. We know we don't give you guys 2,000 pounds of homework. However, piece of figurative language that I will be talking about are idioms. And so what an idiom is an expression whose literal meaning cannot be understood from the combined meaning of its actual word. And so some famous idioms in English are, it was a piece of cake. We all know that this saying means it was easy. When someone says it was a piece of cake, they mean that something was easy.
Now that we got the basic poem structure in our notes, what I'm going to be taking the class to do now is a poem book. Okay? There are many different types of poems. We're going to concentrate on 7 distinct types. Okay? Free verse, acrostic, a ballad, a sequein, a haiku, a limerick, and a sinru. Okay? Now first, what is a free verse poem? Okay? A free verse poem that you will definitely like is poetry written with or without rhyme and has no meter to it. So pretty much you can have fun with this one. Wake up to a bright sapphire morning, cloudless skies. This can only mean one thing. It's a go. Okay? That's just the first portion of that. But pretty much the sky's the limit with this type of poem. We're definitely going to have fun with that one. Now, on all these different poems, I'm going to require one thing, though. Each poem has to have at least one example of a figurative language device, such as a metaphor, personification, alliteration, onomatopoeia, etc. And this will be highlighted in your poem. Okay? Now, an acrostic poem is a type of poetry where the first, last, or other letters in a line spell out a particular word or phrase. Okay? So we're going to do our first and last name. And you're going to make a poem using those letters of your first and last name. The most common and simple form of an acrostic poem is where the first letters of each line spell out the word or phrase. And in this case, again, we're going to be using our name, first and last name. Now, a sequein poem is a verse of 5 lines that do not rhyme. Each line has a set number of syllables. Okay? First line has 2 syllables. The second line has 4 syllables. The third line has 6 syllables. line 4 has 8 syllables and line 5 has 2 syllables. As you go 2, 4, 6, 8, then back to 2. Example of a sequin poem. My mom is so caring. She's always helpful. She is so beautiful and kind. Love you. Okay, pay attention. My mom, remember 2 syllables. Line 2 is so caring, 4 syllables. She is always helpful, 6. She is so beautiful and kind, 8. Then love you, 2. Okay. The limerick poem will be next. A limerick is often a funny poem with a strong beat. Limericks are very light-hearted poems and can sometimes be utter nonsense. Okay? They're great for kids to both read and write as they are short and funny. Okay? A limerick poem consists of 5 lines. Okay? The first line of a limerick poem usually begins with "there was a" and ends with a name like a person or place. The last line of a limerick is normally a little fabricated or unusual. A limerick should have a rhyme scheme of AA, BBA. This means lines 1, 2, and 5 rhyme and lines 3 and 4 rhyme. Also, lines 1, 2, and 5 should have 7 to 10 syllables and lines 3 and 4 should have 5 to 7 syllables. An example by famous poet Edward Lear reads as thus. There was an old man with a beard who said, "It is just as I feared. 2 owls and a hen, a lark and a wren, have all built their nests in my beard." Okay? So that's an example of a limerick poem. Okay? This means lines 1, 2, and 5 rhyme and lines 3 and 4 rhyme. Also, lines 1, 2, and 5 should have 7 to 10 syllables, and lines 3 and 4 should have 5 to 7 syllables. An example of a limerick poem. Okay? A Senryu poem is next. A Senryu is a 17-syllable poem. It is an unrhymed Japanese verse. A Senryu consists of 3 lines and 17 syllables. The 17 syllables should be arranged as, in line 1 should have 5 syllables, line 2 should have 7 syllables, and line 3 should have 5 syllables. An example of a Senryu poem is, "Pretty red flower, the buzzing bees really love, your pollen so sweet." 17 syllables should be arranged as, in line 1 should have 5 syllables, line 2 should have 7 syllables, and line 3 should have 5 syllables. Now a ballad. A ballad is a poem that tells a story, which are often used as song because of their rhyme. A ballad is a poetic story, often a love story. An example of a ballad poem could be, "As I was walking down the street, I saw 2 people in secret meet. The second one said to the first, 'You have some news to quench my thirst?' And behind the old damp shed, there lies a noble man slain dead. And no one knows he lies in strife except his dog and lonely wife." And it continues. This is a ballad. Now, a haiku poem is a type of poetry that can be written on many themes, from love to nature. Now, what is the structure of a haiku poem? Haiku consists of 3 lines and 17 syllables. Each line has a set number. Line 1 has 5 syllables. Line 2 has 7 syllables. And line 3 has, again, 5 syllables. An example of a haiku poem is as follows. The sky is so blue. The sun is so warm up high. I love the summer. Again, doesn't have to rhyme, right? Haiku poem doesn't need to rhyme, but for more of a challenge, some poets try to rhyme lines 1 and 3. Line 1 has 5 syllables. Line 2 has 7 syllables. And line 3 has, again, 5 syllables. Okay? Those are the 7 poems that we're going to be using in our poem book. I'm going to give you a rubric which is going to go over the different things I'm going to be looking at. I have a cover to be illustrated, creative, and neat. Contains a name, date, and your period. The title of the poetry book contains a creative original title for all your different poems, all my lyrics. Your presentation or design. Your book must be in a book format, meaning pages are bound together, organized, and looks like a book. Okay? I want a dedication page with a heartfelt dedication to a person or group of people. The dedication contains no errors in spelling, punctuation, or capitalization. In fact, throughout the book, it shouldn't be like that. I want a table of contents listing the 7 poems in your book. Poem titles are capitalized. Again, the book itself should have your 7 required poems. One poem contains a meaningful creative title, like I said before. With each poem, there is at least one example of a figure or sound device, such as metaphor, simile, personification, hyperbole, onomatopoeia, and that will be highlighted in your poem. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this unit on poems. I hope you enjoyed the project you're going to be given. So enjoy yourself, have fun with it, and turn it as soon as possible. Do a good job. Take care.